Hey bros, T-Shroom here. Now, I had an awesome opportunity to sit down with none other than CVO. He's a good friend of Tim and I, and we had a great conversation. It's a little bit different than what you might be used to hearing in the crypto space right now, but I feel that it's very important for you to listen to this video all the way through to help prevent you making some of the mistakes that a lot of investors and traders make in the euphoric bull run that is to come. Watch and take a look. You've been in crypto for a long time. How many cycles have you been in crypto?
So 7 years almost in January,
Yeah,
actually. So
legend.
2017 bull run, and since then, so I guess two bulls and two bears at this point. So going into the third potential bull here.
You've seen so many bull markets and bear markets relative to the average, investor and
Right.
trader in the space. What are the biggest differences that you're seeing in this now that we're kind of leaving the bear market? What has been the biggest difference you've seen in the bear market? And then obviously, I'd like an answer for the run up to the bull market. What do you think is going to be the biggest difference versus what we've seen historically?
So a couple things come to mind, and one thing I would say is timing.
Mm-hmm.
If you will actually just go ahead and share my screen real
Sure.
quick, I'll go ahead and kind of explain this. So let me go to a better chart here. So, everybody's getting really excited, which once again, it's exciting times. Like I said, Bitcoin's up like 200% over the last several years or this year. And these two levels I'm going to come back to in a second, right? But I'm going to leave them on there for now. But yeah, I guess the timing, right? So one big thing that everybody likes to do, and, I guess for some potential good measure, and I used to do this really heavily in the past as well, because, it's one thing in data to study the, past to kind of not really predict the future, but just to, kind of have an idea, the old, it doesn't happen exactly, but sometimes it rhymes kind of deal, right?
Right.
But in general, most price action has specific moves, right? You'll hear about a lot of retracements to the gold pocket or, pullbacks, and then, everything of that nature, right? They're very cyclical in how they occur. This was that $20,000 high back in 2017. And, many are constantly bringing up how, we ran up so from high to low. I just pulled the gold pocket. So this is which you guys probably talk on often as well, right? We came up and we tagged this region. The equivalent of that right now is up at 50K, and that's why that's a really big target for a lot of things, and how we will be looking engaging the reaction up at that area. The one thing I did want to bring up is the time, right? So like back in this time frame, this happened, off the low. We ran up into this region, from January into like 5 months, right? So we were actually broke out of this in March. So this actually was only 90 days, from this time frame. But let's just say the low comes in December. Within 6 months, we were back here. This has obviously been an entire year, and we're not at that region yet. So I feel like a lot of people are really, really in love with the 4-year cycle, which once again, at this point, it's something that's kind of all we have to go off of, because you only have so much data. For me, I lean a little bit more into the idea that, looking at like things like the housing market, which has got, 18 to 20 year cycles. Obviously you have the stock market that has, huge cycles as well. For me, the housing market is a really big gauge, and the last housing market cycle effectively started on 2008, let's just call it, when the huge crash happened. 2009, you could look at it at that time frame. Realistically, to me, I think it started in 2011, but just let's put it all in like a little grouping of that 2008 to 11 window. Crypto was born in that time frame,
Yeah.
which is 2009, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm looking at this as a potential, just a first 20-year cycle, right?
Hmm.
So we've seen multiple differences along the way. You've seen huge expansions to the upside, in which the bull market, then the bear market, and they're getting, some of them are longer, some of them are, shorter, what have you. But yeah, one of the things I did want to point out is the timing. So just like this chart here, in the attempt to get up to these regions, this has taken twice as long. And I think everybody's getting really excited, thinking it's just, bull market, straight up from here, new all-time high. And I would like to, point out that I think that we'll have an event similar to this after the fact. Maybe we don't go all the way back down to these, to the lows. But even back here, this was just a super technical setup, right? You had a high without looking at, any kind of news, just looking at data, right? You had your high, you come down, you expand it to the downside, you got a retracement back into a technical level here. And then from there, certain things that, myself, Magic Internet Money, right? We look at ranges based on volume. So a lot of volume profiles, things of that nature. And one of the, biggest tools there is, like I said, the volume profile tool, which I know you guys touch on a lot, fixed range volume. And this will pull up, certain volume for an area of the chart or a time frame. And what we had here is when we left this region, right? And anytime you have these really big moves to the upside, you're going to leave, averages of price. You're going to have a bunch of things kind of down below you that statistically do get hit. And it's like a CME futures gap, right? So even though it might not be immediate, maybe a year later, you come back to those areas, just like we just did with the 35K, CME futures gap. Obviously, we've blown through it. Now we have a new one down at like 20 or 19. But what we did here was when we left that low, we came up, and even though everybody is going to test this to the Rona dump, essentially,
Sure.
this was a very very technical target here, right? So we had this huge run up. Everybody's got excited. I was living in these days myself, right? So anybody that got in around these highs, which even if you didn't, right? Even if you were building up in this region, and once again, really nobody was getting into Bitcoin. It was the altcoins that were the most exciting thing, and still kind of hold that exciting factor because it's like definitely the best bang for your buck.
Yeah.
The market was exploding. Everything's like looking like it's going back to all new time highs. And you got this huge pullback. We came back. We left this, a quarterly point of control down here, which we came back and we smacked it, perfectly, and kind of got a bounce from there as well. So, for me, I'm just, I wouldn't get too crazy at this point. If you're missing out on anything, or if you feel like you're missing out, I do think you're going to get another, turn down at like potentially like 20K again,
Wow.
over the case of like maybe next year. But it's one of those things like we have to manage it along the way because, like, similar to what you just said, right? Like when we come up to 50K, you start flipping these regions. There are targets above us, of course. I wouldn't just blindly short the market at like 48 to 50,000, but this is a big level here. This is also a last year's yearly average. So when you look at certain things of like a moving average per se, like
Sure.
the 50, the 200. There's averages of price for every day, week, month, quarter, 6 months, year, what have you. And the price action does tend to return to those averages, like a mean reversion, just very similar to those moving averages. They just don't move. So 47K, 48K. There's a good amount of resistance up here, as well as anybody that was holding shorts. Maybe they got in short at this region, or they were short from the highs, move their stop loss obviously to the last high. That is the last one up here. Before the all-time high, essentially. So definitely a big target to be had here. But we do have a lot of things below us. So not necessarily able to just marry the idea that we're going to just completely melt down, but just know that there's reason to assume that we could and we'd have to start seeing the rejection. Yeah, I mean, for me, even I'll just pull up a simple one here. So very similar to that Rona dump target. This point of control. So this quarter right here has closed. So that range is set. We have not come back and back tested that point of control. So at this point, that is a naked point of control. Like I said, at the level we're at right now, it's irrelevant. But this is an area that has some credence at the moment that we would come back and revisit. It's right at $23,000. You also have one if on a monthly basis you go down to January here and just pull it for the January timeframe, comes all the way back down to like 16.8, which once again, not marrying these ideas, but just know that there is just a lot of things below us. That 23 has definitely got my attention. The CME futures gap, I believe, is down here around like 21. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's things that we could very well come up to these areas and slowly come back down to. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's just one of those things where, if you're going to be putting any kind of risk on at the moment, this is a tough one to get involved at. And more than likely, we're not just going to just blast out of here, in my opinion. So, and that's all it is, just an opinion based on data, and that's how I'll be looking at it.
Altcoins, you get your best bang for your buck from the altcoins. You mentioned that. What are some altcoins that you're holding for the bull cycle here?
For the bull cycle. So, I think that there's probably some new coins that'll eventually make their rounds here, like some of the like gaming industry and like, like last time around, Meta was a big one. So
Hmm.
like Sand and Mana and things like that. So for me, Chainlink was one that I kind of got into a lot around this. There was a huge range that had been sitting in for quite a bit.
Yeah,
I bring up Sand because I do think that that's one as well. I got a little bit of that as far as like for the long term haul, and then a few that I'm just kind of I'm usually like in and out. Litecoin, oddly enough, was my gateway drug into crypto. So in January of 2017, there was literally only Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin on Coinbase, and I just bought Litecoin. Didn't know anything about it. It was the cheapest one. It was $3. So I bought a decent amount, nothing crazy, but like enough to like, have it, throw it on a ledger or whatever. I ended up
sure.
watching like 100x like twice and never taking profit because I got the idea that it was going to keep going. So like most people do in the beginning. So at this point, like that's just my like complete like hodl bag. For whatever reason, I can't part ways with it. It's kind of like how anybody like XRP or anything like that.
Sure.
But so Litecoin's my random, just got in too good of a price in my opinion. Maybe it goes to zero, maybe it doesn't. But I'd say Chainlink, Near Protocol, Sand, and I know that these are like some higher like. They're not necessarily super degen plays or anything like that, and I also
Sure.
pick these up like basically throughout the year. I wouldn't just jump into them now. Solana was a big one for me as well, about like that $8 to $12 range, and
Very nice.
Cardano. I would say I got some Cardano, and then from those, like what I'll do is I'll look for some pretty big targets like Cardano. I'm looking at like 70 cents.
To sell?
Near, yeah, just and
Okay.
like not everything, but like just to take some profit out of that, and then at that
Sure.
point probably reevaluate the market and see if there's anything kind of emerging, and just kind of move things around as they come. And then obviously Ethereum. I actually don't have too much Bitcoin personally. Ethereum is my larger of the two holdings. And then yeah, so I really do focus on the altcoins as a whole, and then yeah, build up more so like that. I move around things in the altcoin market to essentially accumulate more ETH, and then Litecoin. Yes, at some point I'll just dump that as well.
Very nice, man. I like it. Like it. Sounds like some pretty good positioning and a lot of coins you're confident in. So that's awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I do have pulled up your Twitter. So this is where you'd want to go if you want to learn more and hear more from CVO. You just go to at CVO underscore crypto. And then you've also got a website here, leadingcrypto.io. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that website and what folks could expect from that?
Yeah, so the website's kind of like the hub for everything. There's a link to my YouTube channel. We have a Discord trading group that has a free version and a membership version. We have a
Nice.
7-day free trial on there. If you'd like to try the membership side, that'll give you kind of full access. It's myself and two other analysts, Magic Internet Money and Max, which he's over in Dubai and he takes care of all the order flow and open interest. A little bit more of a getting into the weeds on certain things, but it's very interesting stuff. The two of them are absolute beasts. And we have a 9 hour plus educational side of things as well. It kind of goes over all the tools and resources, that we use and just kind of gets everybody up to speed on the verbiage and understanding what we're talking about and looking at. So
For sure. Makes sense, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll look forward to having you back on very, very soon. Thank you so much.
appreciate it, teacher.